Hey, sorry about the, all the lines and stuff. Quality's not that great, but I just wanted to talk about information, so the quality of the video is unimportant to the subject. So let's talk about the A plus exam and someone who's just taken it today. It is fresh in my mind. I just passed the core one. So I received a 727 out of 675. Given I did study for 6 to 7 weeks, and in my opinion, I spent too much time studying the test because I ended up hating, not ended up hating, but I was dreading the subjects and dreading to study and keep myself indulged into it. So that's something that you also need to think about, is that I almost felt like it was worse for me that I gave myself so much time to really hammer the subjects in my head. And it was very, after a while, just repeating the same things, it kind of wore down my brain. So that's something that you should also keep in mind when you take the test, uh, is that it is, not super hard. Like, it's not terribly hard. It is only hard if you view it as this super monumental task that and that you need to memorize every little thing and you need to spend this much time or all of that. Like, yes, do spend that much time. Do try to memorize everything, but you don't need to give yourself, let's just say, 3 months. If you're studying, if you can study, 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, and you give yourself a month and a half, that is more than enough time to do this. I mean, honestly, if you're experienced, this test, the subjects are pretty basic. Um, the only thing is, from like the biggest challenge, honestly, in my opinion, is something that you almost can't even study. It is the way the questions are. Uh, there's a lot of questions on the exam that didn't really make that much sense, uh, and it's just a weird format. And the trick is, there's very little of these. There's very little of these, but the trick is not to waste too much time. Read it, go through it. Whatever you see that you're down 3 minutes on the clock because you're stuck on this one, just just answer what you can, get out of there. Answer what you can, get out of there. That was the first question on my exam. It took me 3 minutes, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I gotta do that. I had 50 minutes at the end of the test. I definitely could have gone over things a lot more, but that just goes to show how tired I was of taking this damn test. But yeah, so the questions are pretty simple, multiple choice, uh, for the most part. There is some few drag and drops. Um, you do not need to know, like, let's just say, the amount of pens on a VGA cable. That never came up. You do not need to know, um, probably memorize some of the speed, but like, I would say you don't need to know the exact numbers for speed for a lot of like the cables. Like, let's just say you don't really need to know the difference between 3.2, sorry, what am I saying? USB 2.0 versus USB 3.0 or whatever. You don't need to know the difference between, like, the exact difference, but you need to know that, like, USB 3 is a little bit faster, and maybe, like, just general knowledge about that, because that's what the test. First off, that you're not going to remember that. Oh, I mean, maybe you will, but you're not going to remember very specific details about one certain type of cable. You're more likely to remember just general information. And from what I can tell, the CompTIA doesn't say, like, oh, well, how many pins are on a HDMI cable? Like some of the practice tests that I took asked me. Um, they just ask you to understand how things work, what's going on, what cable does what, you know. So I wouldn't stress too heavily into that department, but just whenever you're taking the practice tests, Gideon's practice tests were good. The harder the practice test, the better. JDN's practice test, I ended up getting 85s, or I got an 85 on the last test. Um, and for that translated in for me to a 727, a just barely passing score. So, like maybe 5 or 6% above what you need. So the you should like really practice the. You should practice and then take the JDN test. And you can like definitely go and review it, but don't act like your retakes count as the 90% passing. You should take one test to measure your to measure where you're at, and then study for a week. Take the next test, study for a week, take the next test, and if you're getting like, I'd say even just like an 80 or, like 80 or above on his tests, you're more than likely gonna pass the exam. And you have to also kind of realize when it is just kind of like, whenever something is very specific, and you have to also understand when you're being taught useless information. Go through the exam objectives list and see, does it cover this at all, or like if it's just something so specific and you're like, whatever, you have to identify that and be done with it. But yeah, good luck to everybody trying to take their test. I appreciate you guys watching through this video. I wish you guys all the best of luck. Hope you guys all pass your exams. All right, bye-bye.